But it was hard, and there have been books written that talked about, they didn't call it PTSD then, but, Dad never talked about the war to us. I would ask him, and, he would sometimes have nightmares in the middle of the night.
Jimmy Stewart was more than just an actor. Sure, he was a household name, but he was also the embodiment of the American ideal, with a persona that captured hearts and a legacy that continues to live on to this day. But who was the Hollywood star behind his iconic roles in blockbusters like It's a Wonderful Life, The Philadelphia Story, and Rear Window? For the first time, his daughter, Kelly Stewart, is choosing to share a side of her father that the world didn't know. His flaws, his love for family, and what it was like to grow up with a man who redefined Hollywood forever. The man behind the icon. Kelly Stewart, now in her 70s, has lived a life that has been shaped by both the public's admiration for her father and the quiet, personal moments that only family members experience. She's one of the few who can share the truth about Jimmy Stewart, the father, the husband, and the man away from the cameras. And in a rare glimpse behind the curtain, Kelly has opened up about her father's complex relationship with fame. Growing up as the daughter of an iconic actor had its share of challenges, but Kelly insists that her father was far from the typical Hollywood dad. Jimmy Stewart wasn't the hands-on disciplinarian type of father you might expect from someone of his stature. Instead, Kelly reflects that his style of parenting was simple but impactful. He didn't need to lecture because he taught by example. She remembers him not for the awards or accolades, but for the values he lived by every day. Kelly explained that her dad never had to say much because he was the living, breathing picture of grace and humility. Kelly remembers Stewart often balancing work and personal life on most days, but when he was spending time with his family, he wasn't James Stewart, the global star. He was just a devoted dad to his kids. For her, the most memorable moments were the quiet evenings when he'd sit in his special chair, reviewing scripts, his lips moving silently as he prepared for the next role. She vividly remembers the sight of him lost in thought, but he never let work take over him completely. Kelly also reveals a surprising truth about her father's relationship with his fans. Jimmy Stewart was the kind of man who loved connecting with people. He had a unique ability to make each person feel seen, no matter their status in the world. He never turned down an autograph and was always so gracious with fans that you could see the joy in his eyes when they shared how his movies impacted them. He truly believed in the power of kindness, and he lived it every single day. Even if there was a huge crowd, he'd make sure to write extremely personal notes for each one of his fans. Whenever they would send him letters, he would make it a point to always respond. He was the kind of star who was never too busy to let someone know he appreciated them, and that's what makes his legacy so special. However, like any father, there were moments of vulnerability that Kelly has come to understand more deeply with time. As much as he was known for his strong moral compass, there were times when his persona was shaken, most notably after the death of his beloved wife, Gloria, in 1994. Kelly recalled that when her mom passed away, something changed in Jimmy. He wasn't depressed, but it felt like he'd had enough of the world. He spent more time in bed, with just his 2 dogs for company. It was clear he was heartbroken. Even through his grief, Jimmy never allowed it to cloud his love for his family. Kelly recalls that even through this dark time, he always made sure to show that he cared. He was never a man of many words, but he left no stone unturned to make his family feel the love he had for them. For Kelly, the biggest gift her father gave her wasn't the Hollywood legacy or the accolades. It was the simple truth that he was there for her no matter what. He never pretended to be perfect, she says. "He was just a man who loved his family, and I think that's the Jimmy Stewart we should all remember." Of course, no discussion about Jimmy Stewart would be complete without mentioning It's a Wonderful Life, the movie that remains a holiday staple more than 70 years after its release. For Kelly, the movie holds a deep connection to her father, not just as an actor, but as a person. She revealed that her dad loved working with Frank Capra on the film, and that it was one of his favorite projects, thanks to its message of family, love, and redemption. And even now, as the film continues to touch generations of viewers, Kelly finds comfort in the fact that her father's work still brings joy to millions. She knows that her dad would be thrilled to know that his movie still has such a big impact today. The early years of Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy grew up in Indiana, Pennsylvania. He came from humble beginnings, but it was the values instilled in him by his family, especially his father, that would lay the foundation for his remarkable future. Stewart's early life was shaped by a blend of small-town sensibilities, a strong work ethic, and an unwavering sense of duty. These traits, combined with his intellectual curiosity and artistic inclinations, would guide him through his formative years. Stewart's father, Alex Stewart, was a successful hardware store owner who had served in the Spanish-American War and later in World War I. He was a man of principle, a staunch patriot, and a devout Presbyterian. His values, conservative, grounded, and deeply rooted in the importance of community and family, would influence Stewart profoundly throughout his life. His mother, Elizabeth, was a gentle, devout woman. The balance between his father's strong sense of discipline and his mother's nurturing nature shaped Stewart into a reserved yet principled young man. As a boy, Stewart was known for his quiet determination and his love for tinkering with things. His early fascination with flight was a testament to his boundless curiosity. Stewart would often build model airplanes and, as a 4-year-old, almost met an untimely end by attempting to fly off the roof of his house in a makeshift flying contraption. His passion for aviation would continue into adulthood. Stewart's academic path took him from Indiana's public schools to Mercersburg Academy, a prestigious preparatory school in Pennsylvania. At Mercersburg, Stewart's academic prowess and athletic abilities shone through. He was an outstanding student, although his towering frame and shy demeanor sometimes made him an outlier among his peers. At this stage, though, Stewart was a reserved young man who still hadn't fully discovered his love for acting, which would later define his life. When it came time for Stewart to attend college, his parents, particularly his father, urged him to pursue a career in architecture. Alex Stewart, a Princeton graduate himself, saw the university as a place where his son could receive the best education and, perhaps one day, join the family's tradition of academic excellence. Stewart initially enrolled at Princeton in 1927, where he followed in his father's footsteps, majoring in architecture. However, Stewart's college experience wasn't without its challenges. The young man, who had been shy and awkward in his earlier years, found it difficult to adjust to Princeton's social scene. At 6'3" and weighing only 130 pounds, Stewart definitely stood out in the crowd. He struggled with calculus, which led him to switch his major to architecture from engineering. It wasn't long before Stewart discovered that his true passion lay not in building structures, but in the arts, particularly theater. At Princeton, Stewart found a new sense of self, discovering his talent for acting in the university's Triangle Club, a student-run theater group. It was here that Stewart began to embrace the possibility of a career in the arts. His first major theatrical role was in the 1930-31 Triangle Club show, The Tiger Smiles, a performance that would set the course for the rest of his life. Although Stewart initially resisted the idea of acting as a career, feeling it might be too frivolous or even beneath him, his natural talent was undeniable. His friend Josh Logan, who went on to become a famous Broadway director, recognized Stewart's potential and pushed him to pursue the stage more seriously. Logan would later recall that Stewart, though reluctant, had a gift for acting that he couldn't deny. In fact, Logan believed that Stewart loved acting but was too modest to admit it at first. After graduating from Princeton, Stewart faced a difficult decision. Should he return to Indiana and work in the family hardware store, or should he follow his passion for acting? In a moment of uncertainty, he was offered a summer position with the University Players, a theater company based in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The summer experience led him to New York City, where he began performing in Broadway plays. Stewart's early years in New York were marked by struggle and small roles, but they set the stage for his eventual breakthrough in Hollywood. The rise of a Hollywood icon. Jimmy Stewart's legendary Hollywood career spanned over 50 years, starting with his first film in 1935, where he landed a support role. However, that was enough for Frank Capra to notice the actor's potential, and he cast him in the 1938 ensemble comedy You Can't Take It With You, which proved to be Stewart's breakthrough role. But he still had miles to go. James Stewart's first lead role came in the 1939 film Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Directed by Frank Capra. Once again, the film features Stewart in the role of Jefferson Smith, an idealistic senator who fights for what's right in the face of political corruption. It was a role tailor-made for Stewart's everyman charm and moral clarity, qualities that would define his career and the characters he played. The film was a massive hit, earning Stewart his first Academy Award nomination and establishing him as one of Hollywood's brightest young stars. But what truly set Stewart apart from many other actors of his time wasn't just his ability to act. It was his ability to portray genuine, relatable characters on screen who never faltered from their morals. By 1940, he was well on his way to becoming one of Hollywood's most dashing leading men, especially after he starred in the Philadelphia Story alongside Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, and won the Academy Award for Best Actor. However, that's when things took a drastic turn. When World War II broke out, Stewart, despite his fame and career, felt a deep sense of duty to serve his country. In 1941, he enlisted in the United States Air Force and began military training. He was not exempt from combat service due to his Hollywood fame, and he didn't want to be either. Stewart, already a licensed pilot, went on to serve as a bomber pilot during the war, flying 20 combat missions and eventually rising to the rank of colonel. His military service was a defining chapter of his life, earning him the Distinguished Flying Cross and several other decorations. It was Stewart's bond with his father that played a crucial role in his decision to serve. Stewart's father, who had served in both the Spanish-American War and World War I, had always been a man of duty. As Stewart prepared to leave for England, his father slipped a note into his pocket, urging him to rely on his faith during the dangerous missions ahead. The words of Psalm 91 became a source of solace and strength for Stewart during the war, and he later recalled that the spiritual support he received from his father helped him cope with the daily risks of his military service. After the war, Stewart returned to Hollywood, but the man who came back was forever changed. His first post-war film was It's a Wonderful Life, 1946, directed by Frank Capra. Stewart portrayed George Bailey, an idealistic small-town man who contemplates self-harm, but is shown by an angel how much his life matters to others. When he returned to the set of It's a Wonderful Life, he struggled with doubts about the value of acting in the face of the horrors he had witnessed. In a pivotal moment, his co-star Lionel Barrymore challenged Stewart's self-reflection by comparing the impact of his acting to the more destructive role of a bomber pilot. This remark helped Stewart reconcile his role in Hollywood, and his life was changed forever. The film, while not a huge success upon its release, would eventually become one of the most beloved films of all time, and Stewart would forever be associated with its message of kindness, community, and the value of life. In the 50s, Stewart's career took an interesting turn when he began working with cinema's most iconic directors, Alfred Hitchcock. Their collaboration produced some of Stewart's most iconic and suspenseful performances. Films like Rope, 1948, Rear Window, 1954, and Vertigo, 1958, saw Stewart delve into darker, more psychologically complex roles, showing a side of him that audiences had not seen before. By the 60s, everyone knew that Stewart was here to take over the industry. He became a fixture in Western films, working with directors like John Ford and Anthony Mann. His performances in films like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, 1962, and How the West Was Won, 1962, continued to showcase his versatility and ability to bring depth to every role. Jimmy Stewart's personal life. In his personal life, Stewart married Gloria Hattrick MacLean in 1949. She was a former model and socialite, and their relationship lasted for 45 years, until Gloria's unfortunate passing in 1994. Before meeting Gloria, Stewart was famously known as the Great American Bachelor. For much of his early life, Stewart had avoided serious commitments, despite being romantically linked to a number of Hollywood actresses. His relationships with leading ladies like Olivia de Havilland, Loretta Young, and Ginger Rogers made headlines, but none were meant to last. Stewart had long been wary of marriage, preferring to focus on his career and his personal sense of independence. But then, at a Christmas party in 1947, Stewart met Gloria. Their initial meeting didn't exactly spark fireworks. In fact, it left a poor impression. Stewart had imbibed a little too much at the party, and Gloria wasn't impressed by his drunken antics. However, fate had other plans. A year later, they crossed paths again at another party, this time hosted by Gary Cooper. This time, Stewart was sober, and their connection was immediate. The two began dating shortly after, and their relationship blossomed, culminating in a wedding in August 1949. Now, Gloria was a divorced woman with two sons, Ronald and Michael, whom Stewart adopted, embracing his role as a father with warmth and devotion. The couple then also had twin daughters, Kelly and Judy, born in 1951. Jimmy's commitment to his family was unwavering, even in the face of his growing Hollywood fame. While Stewart's life seemed blessed with a fulfilling career and a loving family, tragedy struck in 1969. Stewart's adopted son, Ronald, who had followed in his father's footsteps and joined the military, was tragically killed in the Vietnam War at the young age of 24. Ronald's death was a devastating blow for Stewart, who had always seen his sons as an integral part of his life. His grief over Ronald's death was profound and left a permanent mark on him. However, even in the face of this heartbreak, Stewart remained a pillar of strength for his remaining family. His wife and kids leaned on each other during this difficult time. Stewart spoke about his son's death with dignity, acknowledging the loss, but refusing to let it define him. He died for his country, Stewart said in an interview, never allowing himself to drown in despair. However, he shared that there wasn't a day that went by that he wasn't thinking of Ron and his commitment to serving his country. By the 1970s, Stewart had become more selective about his projects. He took on fewer film roles, choosing instead to engage in smaller, more meaningful roles that allowed him to step into the background and take on characters that reflected his age and wisdom. His film work during this period included appearances in Mr. Kruger's Christmas, 1980, a heartfelt television film produced by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, where Stewart played a lonely man who finds solace in his faith, and Right of Way, 1983, an HBO drama in which he starred alongside the legendary Bette Davis. Even though his film roles had slowed, Stewart found other ways to remain active. In the early 1980s, he also contributed to the arts in various capacities, including supporting projects that helped preserve the history of classic Hollywood. Stewart's voice, still distinctive and beloved, was used in various documentaries and retrospectives where he reflected on his storied career, always emphasizing how deeply he valued his work, but never forgetting the personal sacrifices he made along the way. Not long after that, Stewart lost the love of his life, his wife, Gloria, to lung cancer in 1994. And that's when the toll of all this loss really took over him. His health began to decline, and he wasn't appearing in films as frequently as he once did. In interviews and appearances, Stewart often spoke about the natural process of aging and how it had changed his perspective on life. His once vibrant energy had dimmed, but his quiet strength remained. He refused to be defined by his health issues and instead focused on what he could continue to contribute, especially in the realm of his personal life and the preservation of his legacy. Though he made fewer public appearances, Stewart remained a symbol of the old Hollywood era. He made one final public appearance in 1996, attending the Academy Awards ceremony to receive an honorary Oscar in recognition of his incredible body of work. It was a fitting tribute to a man whose career had transcended generations. In 1997, just a year after receiving his honorary Academy Award, Jimmy Stewart passed away at the age of 89. His death was met with an outpouring of grief from fans and colleagues alike. The tributes to Stewart poured in from all corners of the world, as people remembered him not just for his acting, but for the decency and honor he had embodied throughout his life. He was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, where his legacy lives on. The celebration of Stewart's life and career. Even decades later, though, Jimmy Stewart's life and career continue to resonate with not just fans, but the entire film industry. As Hollywood looks back on its golden era, Stewart is remembered in a league of his own. Now, more than a quarter century after his passing, Stewart's legacy is continuing to inspire and influence new generations of filmmakers and actors. One of the most recent tributes to Stewart's life comes in the form of Jimmy, a highly anticipated biopic about the legendary actor, set to be released in November 2026. The film, directed by Aaron Burns and produced by Burns and Company Productions, stars Riverdale actor KJ Apa as Stewart. Apa, known for his roles in The Hate U Give and The Map That Leads to You, has taken on the challenge of portraying one of Hollywood's most iconic stars. In the first teaser trailer for Jimmy, released in December 2025, audiences got a glimpse of Appa's portrayal of Stewart as the film explores the actor's rise in Hollywood, his Oscar-winning performances, his wartime service as a bomber pilot, and the making of It's a Wonderful Life, one of Stewart's most beloved films. The film promises to offer a never-before-seen fictionalization of the actor's public and private life, and has already generated a lot of buzz on the internet. While KJ Appa's casting has polarized fans, Kelly herself has gone on the record to say that she is happy for the actor to be playing his father on the big screen. The 70-year-old admitted that she thought Hollywood would never find anyone to play the role and do justice to it. But she's extremely confident in the Riverdale star, given that He is a big fan of the Hollywood legend himself. She was particularly enthusiastic about the way the film would depict Stewart's war service, his time in the U.S. Army Air Corps during World War II, and the personal struggles he faced, something she believes will resonate with audiences. Appa himself has been very open about the honor of portraying Jimmy Stewart, someone he's admired greatly. "I have always been a huge James Stewart fan, and feel so honored I get to bring his story to life," Appa shared in an interview. As a New Zealand native, Appa mentioned that he has long been drawn to the values of patriotism, integrity, and a sense of duty that Stewart embodied, not just as an actor, but as a man. Appa's connection to Stewart goes beyond admiration for his films. It taps into the actor's deep sense of honor and dedication, both to his country and his craft. When the teaser trailer for Jimmy dropped, it quickly went viral, and reactions were mixed. Fans were eager to see how KJ Appa would embody the man who became synonymous with Hollywood charm, but some expressed reservations about his portrayal, particularly his attempt to capture Stewart's distinctive voice. One of the biggest discussions surrounding the trailer was Appa's imitation of Stewart's iconic voice, a challenge given the uniqueness of Stewart's vocal delivery. Stewart's voice, with its distinct Midwestern twang, was often as much a part of his charm as his performances themselves. Some fans on social media shared their thoughts, noting that while Stewart's voice had its own quirks and challenges, there was a delicate balance in capturing its essence without it sounding like an exaggerated impression. But it remains to be seen whether Appa will manage to strike that balance when the film finally hits the theaters. While the film is certainly drawing attention for its depiction of Stewart's war service and his portrayal as George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life, the film also promises to show a side of Stewart that many fans are unfamiliar with. Stewart's life was not just marked by his famous roles in front of the camera, but by the personal challenges he faced. Director Aaron Burns has stated that the goal of Jimmy is not only to show Stewart's rise in Hollywood, but also to humanize him, to portray the man behind the iconic roles. The film will explore his emotional battles, especially his desire to serve in the military despite his fame, and the impact of his wartime experiences on his personal and professional life. Burns expressed that Jimmy Stewart is adored by many for his roles, embodying the relatable everyman. He believes Stewart's life, which includes his military service and personal hardships, provides a powerful and captivating story, and he feels privileged to bring it to the big screen. That's not the only tribute to Stewart's legacy, though, because his own hometown has celebrated his legacy like no other. Although the town's economic fortunes have waned over the years, its pride in Stewart's legacy has only grown stronger. What started with a modest plaque at Stewart's birthplace has blossomed into a full-fledged celebration of his life and accomplishments. Indiana, once a hub of industry, has now become the permanent home of a museum dedicated to preserving the memory of its most famous son. A symbol of how the values of a small town can leave an indelible mark on the world. The town's love for Stewart began to take formal shape in 1983, when, in honor of his 75th birthday, Indiana staged a grand celebration that included a parade in Stewart's honor. This was not just a local festivity, but a public declaration of the town's deep affection for the actor. The culmination of the festivities came with the unveiling of a life-sized bronze statue of Stewart in front of the county courthouse. This statue, immortalizing Stewart in his iconic stance, with one hand in his pocket and the other raised in mid-conversation, was designed to capture the essence of the man who had come to embody both the humble, small-town values of Indiana and the grandeur of Hollywood. In addition to the statue, Indiana also renamed 7th Street to Jimmy Stewart Boulevard, further cementing the town's connection to Stewart. This tribute was a demonstration of how the community was embracing its history and aligning itself with the legacy of the actor who had put this town on the map. But it wasn't just the statue and street name that stood as monuments to Stewart's impact. It was the creation of the Jimmy Stewart Museum in 1995 that truly solidified his place in the town's heart. The museum is modest in size, but it stands as a testament to Stewart's extraordinary life and the values he championed. The place is carefully curated, with numerous artifacts that reflect the full arc of Stewart's life, from his childhood in Indiana to his time at Princeton University, his military service, and his long and successful Hollywood career. Among the items displayed in the museum are movie memorabilia that span Stewart's remarkable filmography, including his iconic roles in It's a Wonderful Life, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and Rear Window. The collection also includes personal items from his life, providing an intimate glimpse into his world. One of the most striking pieces is Stewart's Oscar statuette, a symbol of the recognition he received for his work in the Philadelphia Story, a role that would become one of the defining moments of his career. The small 52-seat theater within the museum offers a perfect setting for visitors to experience Stewart's films, allowing them to connect with his performances in a more personal and meaningful way. It is here, in this cozy theater, that the legacy of Jimmy Stewart is brought to life for the next generation of fans and admirers. Today, the Jimmy Stewart Museum continues to welcome thousands of visitors each year. It remains a place where fans can come to learn, reflect, and connect with the man who changed Hollywood and the world for decades to come. Jimmy Stewart has had one of the most legendary careers in Hollywood history. What aspect of his legacy inspires you the most? Let us know in the comments. Thanks for watching.